three. Stand for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Bartlett.
Here.
All right, Mrs. Graves not here with us tonight. Dr. Lewis.
I am here.
You are here. Mrs. Rankin.
As am I.
Mr. Stelzer.
Here.
Mr. York.
Here.
All right. All right, any questions regarding,
Put your excuse off here, please.
Yeah.
oh, sorry about that, yes.
Thank you, Joni.
I need a motion and a second to excuse Mrs. Graves.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Bartlett.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer.
Aye.
Mr. York.
Aye.
All right. Now, any questions regarding those minutes?
Nope.
We all good?
Good.
Yes? Motion and a second to accept, please.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Bartlett.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin.
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer.
Aye.
Mr. York.
Aye.
All right, we'll accept those minutes. All right, in communications tonight, we have a couple of things. I think you all got the letter alerting us to the grant money that's going to come in, the Ohio Grants Partnership, $184,257. Very nice. And I guess now, Tony, as I understand it, I mean, that's it for this year, is that correct?
That's correct. The second chunk will come
Yeah,
in,
there's a second chunk.
like I said, no less than 12 months later.
Okay.
So it'll be after, yeah.
Okay. Well, that'll be nice. All right, and from Mr. York, we have a communication regarding, Randy, do you want to go ahead and fill us in on the Centennial Committee?
Yeah, I think most of you saw it, and I think I might have talked about this at my, when I became a council member. It's the idea of putting together a committee to pursue centennial projects. So, I don't know what role council, this body would have, support it certainly. But the idea would be to publicize it, announce it. I've got some candidates I've written down. I'm sure we all of the rest of it, one of them sitting here tonight, that could be a part of this. And I just outlined some, as far as what I see them doing, a mission statement and some guiding principles. But clearly I see this more as a working document and this committee themselves coming up with all of this. So the Centennial is April of 2023.
Right.
So this would be, perhaps there are projects that we could do that could be completed by the Centennial, but certainly on top of that, long-term, more capital-intensive projects that will celebrate the Centennial into the next Centennial. Another component of this is.
Wait, 100-year projects?
100-year, well, see, this is our, we're celebrating the Centennial by doing it. Maybe it'll take 100 years.
One could argue the trees.
Well, you're right. And then another component of this is maybe some signage, a placard or something in the village celebrating 100 years or something like that.
Sure.
But again, this would be the committee that would kind of drive all of this. Now, would there be funding from the village for this? Perhaps. There'd be, part of it is to look at grants and I'd also add that MPF needs to be a big part of this because it's a big part of what they do. I know they're looking at redoing the family statue and some other
Statuary,
projects
yeah,
now.
that's a
So
big
I would say
project.
for this committee, at least 2 MPF people on it and leave it up to them who it might be.
Would you see it like what we did with the fire EMS, where we post it out there and let people put their names in if they're interested?
I think yes. I'd love it if we could do that and get the support. The other thing is folks love being asked.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
And, some of the young guys we play tennis with and some of the young guys in my neighborhood that I remember when I started writing for the town crier, someone just asked me. And ended up doing it for a long time. So I would say, we could all come up, we could publicize it somehow, put it out there, see what kind of response we get, and then I think maybe all of us have some idea of who might be interested and contribute to this.
Well, do you think you could formulate like a basic structure of what this might look like so that when we were ready to sort of put this out to the public, we'd have at least a loose framework of what it is we're asking?
I could do that.
Yeah, kind of a thing.
More of but I'm also a believer in letting a committee figure out how they want to do it themselves.
But we have to have sort of an, I guess I'm saying, we need an ask. What are we asking? And so we should put together at least some type of a-
This is more of a one-pager.
Yeah,
I
kind of an outline.
understand, yeah, I
okay.
can do that.
Well, why don't we, start working on that, and then we'll move that along.
I
I
do
think
thi-
it's a great idea.
I agree with you. It'd be nice to have some people. I think it's also good to lay this out there for anybody to do, because if they got passion for it, that'd be great.
Oh,
right?
yeah,
You know?
yep.
And there probably are a lot of people I don't know out there who would have a passion to do this, so.
And that's the trick, is to get those folks that are not currently involved. That's what makes the big difference.
Yeah.
Can do.
Can do, yeah. 'Cause,
And new attitude.
maybe with a little bit better outreach and explaining what it is we want to do and the significance and so on and so forth, we might reach a broader group. So we'll go to work on it.
Let me ask you a question here real fast. So one of the things I'm kind of thinking, it's going through the back of my head, is, Mariemont was formed with a lot of planning. It's supposed to be one of the things that we stand for, one of the basic advantages or things we're known for from the standpoint of there's a lot of town planning
Sure.
that went into the process. I've asked several times over the last couple of years, where's the planning document now for Mariemont?
You mean like the original, or?
Well, no, we got the original. That was 100 years ago.
Yeah.
But we haven't updated one since, what I've been able to find out.
Well, 100 years, Joe, it's.
Okay, so as we look at the Centennial Committee, I guess the question I ask, would it be a good time to maybe start thinking about putting together a new plan for the next 100 years? I mean, you're mentioning a couple of projects there. We're going to go through some of the other projects that we know we were facing
Sure.
in Mariemont as we talk the budget later today. But, the last time I think somebody tried to do this to some extent was the Vision 2021, which was 10 years ago, and we're now in 2021.
Right.
So the question I have is, should we try to expand this out to potentially make the goal to come up with a master plan for the next 100 years?
Well, I don't know that it'll go, I like the idea, Joe. I don't know that it'll go 100. I think 10 years is a good frame of window for a master plan.
Yeah, we go over 100, nobody gets held accountable.
I think, though, that you want to look that far into the future when you're picking projects today that are going to last for 100 years. So, I mean, again, the master plan that was put together for Mariemont really wasn't completely facilitated
Executed.
or completed.
It wasn't realized, yeah.
Because it basically, we ran into
Had a
the
Great
Depression, you
Depression.
ran into the war, and the construction that happened after the war was completely different from what was on the original plan. But now is the time, do we take a look at that again to try to figure out how do we set this place up for the next 100 years?
Would we make that an aspect of this group, or would that be sort of
I have no problem with doing it. I mean, again, if you're calling it a Centennial Committee and you got 2 years to pull it off,
I don't have a problem with that. I
No.
mean, one of the things I referenced was the 2021, which hasn't been done yet. But there's a lot of great ideas in here of what, and there's some very talented people that put this together.
Yeah.
And a lot of this was to look at what was not realized.
Right.
In the original plan that we could realize.
one of the things that I mentioned probably about 7, 8 years ago to the MPF was this idea about bringing people in to help us facilitate these types of plans, or, to vet through different types of plans that are out there. I went to a couple different things when the Wasson Way was being proposed, and it was done by the UC Department of Architecture, and they would basically come in and put sessions on and bring the community in to talk about what potential items could happen or what potential changes could be done in a certain area. I know one of the things we talked about was the corner park where the statuary sits. What else could we do with that space? Because it's probably one of the least utilized parks that we have in Mariemont, and I don't know if just changing the statuary is going to bring people in. So there might be some other things we can do in this process. And that's why I'm thinking, maybe we should do this on a little bit broader scale. And there may be some groups we can come in that can help facilitate that process.
I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah.
I know that when MPF's looking at that part of it is like, people don't use it. I mean, it's a Pokemon stop, but that's about it.
It's tough access.
Yeah. Well, of course, they want to help preserve the statuary, that is
Sure.
literally, weathering away. So that was, that's a big aspect to have.
Sure.
But,
But
given
it is
the
an
time
aesthetic
frame
focal
that we have here.
Oh,
we
heck
could-
yeah.
It is an aesthetic focal point.
Yeah.
So Joe, I think I think you're right. I mean, I keep hearing from other people that having a master plan is really a helpful thing for the community overall. I mean, even, because Bill, we've had economic development. People have said,
Right.
people who want to do economic development, if they see that you've got a master plan and you've declared where you're going to head, they're a lot more willing to invest in your community.
Well, it makes it easier for them, you know,
Yeah.
to, you know.
So I think there is a real benefit to doing some of that kind of thing, setting out a master plan. I don't know if, because I got Columbia Townships, and they went through, I have the very first one they did, and then they did an update like 5 years later, and they simplified it a lot too. So another resource who might be able to help us in terms of understanding what goes into those plans. I'm happy to share those 2 copies as well. I got them electronically, so I could send them to anybody, but, somebody like Mike Lemon, who's gone through this before too, to be able to say, hey, here's the learnings we had, so, you don't have to reinvent the wheel in Mariemont.
But we're not talking about making that particular master plan a part of this
I would-
Centennial project
I would have it as a
here.
separate group, but
I
yeah.
mean,
Well, maybe part of the Centennial Project's goal is to develop or begin the process of developing a
or
master
start the
plan.
conversation at least.
Yeah. One of the deliverables, but I don't know that it'd be this group who necessarily has to
Oh.
do that, but.
Well, but the conversation might start there. I think
Yeah.
that's what Randy's trying to say.
So it sounds like you're willing to take a look at it. Sure. And I'll dig up that information on that UC professor who does this. And they basically do it for very little cost. It's kind of the cost of materials, because they like their students coming in and getting that experience, especially with a master plan community like Mariemont has. And we had that guy over here once 7 years ago. It was myself and Janice Setchell met with him and kind of walked the area, but it never went any further than that, so.
Well, we have an excuse. I hate to, to rally behind.
Well, an excuse and a deadline too.
Right.
The deadline's always good.
All right, cool. That was my only comment, so.
No, it was a good topic. It was a good topic, Joe. Do you want to go ahead and?
Quick question, I thought like 5 years ago, didn't we have some kind of 75-year anniversary or something for
Yes.
Mariemont?
That was for the
Incorporation.
incorporation of the village.
Corporation.
Yeah, okay, yeah. We put the big tent over, it was a big band. It was really
So that was
nice.
incorporated, this is.
Yeah. Yeah,
This is
sorry.
the spade going in.
Confusing.
All right, Joe, you want to give us the rundown of the Murray Path landscaping bid, please?
Yeah, I basically included in the council package just a summary where we stand right now. So we ran a little bit behind because of the monsoon season that hit us in May and June on the construction process. And we came to a decision point about whether it made sense to do the final grading and seeding now, or try to wait until September when you got a better chance of the actually seeding taking hold and getting better grass growing out of the process. So we met with the current contractor who's building the path, Pinnacle, and then met with a couple landscaping companies and said, hey, wait a minute, what if we tried to do this in mid-September as we're doing the landscaping? So off that process, we kind of decided that it made sense to wait until September. Why waste the money on seed and process at this point if we can do it all in September? We were able to negotiate a credit from the paving company that was originally going to do the grading and seeding, about $67.50. So that'll come off that original proposal that you saw a while back. We also believe that those costs that were in the initial bid will probably be about $10,000 less than what they originally bid. So we've got that to play with a little bit here. So what you're seeing right now from Raymond Landscape is a bid to grade, seed, and landscape the path. We requested these bids from several contractors, and Evans came in with a little bit higher bid. Raymond was a little bit less, and so Martin Kepke, who's been the landscape architect on this project for us, he has prior experience with Raymond Landscape. They did the landscape for the condos as they were being built, the new condos, and they seem to do a pretty good job over there, and their costs seem to be very, very reasonable. So it's been recommended by the Murray Path Group and by village engineer Chris Hurdle that the village accept the Raymond's Landscape bid not to exceed $65,000. I will point out one line item that's in there, which is the topsoil number. We think that's probably inflated at this point. We don't think there's going to be any way that it's going to be $24,000 of the topsoil, but we asked them, just give us the number that we're not going to exceed here so we could get the council approval on it. And they really won't know how many yards of topsoil they're going to bring in until they get on site. So that's what is in that number. The only thing we've kind of blown up on cost so far is the cost of bringing water service to the area. That has turned out to be a little bit higher number than we ever anticipated originally, including the cost of water tap permits, which now turns out to be $12,000 for the 3 water taps we're going to put in. And we're working on the final layout of where the pipes are going to go and where, some of the faucets are going to be in the area. But it's critical to get water in that area for the landscaping that we're going to do. So that cost is a little bit higher than what we anticipated. We still think we're well within budget of this thing and still will deliver this within the amounts that we'll get from ODNR, from Columbia Township, and private fundraising on the process. The wild card in that process is what exactly will ODNR reimburse us as we spend those amounts, and we'll know that fairly soon as we submit the invoices. And I think, Bill, you've got on your desk a fairly large invoice
Yeah.
that we're going to be submitting in the next day or two.
I just signed it.
Okay, and we'll have a little bit more clarity on exactly what ODNR, there are certain items in the construction. ODNR will not reimburse us for landscaping. We've known that since day one, so we've been able to, we've got private fundraising to cover that. But there's other things that they may cover, and we won't know until we submit
But
those
we
invoices.
may be able to get this water.
And we may be able to get the topsoil,
We-
so.
Yeah,
And
except
and
that's
so
gonna
there's
be- that's
there's
gonna be
things we're not.
submitted on a landscaper's invoice.
And I'll share this, we are so far below the maximum cap, what ODNR gave us. They gave us $268,000 in the grant.
right.
Right now, we're projecting to hit them with probably around $205,000, $210,000. So there's more room there. It's just a matter of whether they'll consider them to be eligible costs or not.
Yeah, yeah. And Joe, on that that topsoil number, in the original quote that I saw from these guys, I mean,
It was like 12.
yeah, they really piled on the topsoil.
We asked them,
Yeah.
give us the not-to-exceed number.
Oh, okay,
So there's probably squishy, but it's, again, we wanted to make sure we had a number that could be approved at this point.
okay. Well, on that water tap thing, though, that doesn't include laying any pipe, though, does it?
No, that's an additional
Yeah.
item. They're still taking a look at, to see if we need backflow valves, pressure-regulated valves, and then actual pipes to go out from where the 3 taps are going to be. So that's still not been decided yet, but the estimate is around $5,000 on that. But again, we're well within
Right.
the budgets at this point.
Well, we gotta have, like you said, you gotta have water over there, or you'll lose all that seed and plants and everything else if you don't have a way to water it. And for us to truck water over there, it's totally unrealistic. Although, I guess John's not here tonight.
So any questions?
No, I think it's a good bid.
You want to take a vote then, Bill?
Do we want to? Do we just want to have
Or just wanna raise your
show of
hands?
hands that this is acceptable?
Yep, that's fine.
Show of hands.
Everybody? Show of hands? We all good?
Hands.
Huh? Okay.
Thank you, we'll keep you informed.
All right, we'll proceed with that then. All right, permission to address council. Anyone like to address council? No questions? It's a friendly group. Okay. All right, let's pay some bills. Any questions regarding the bills? Didn't really see anything that caught my eye on there, per se. Oh, and by the way, I did, just as an aside, it was on last time's bill, I did get the insurance money for the lamppost at $4,700.
Oh,
For the lampposts?
The one that was taken out in the car accident.
Okay.
Any other questions then? I mean, all look good?
pretty straightforward.
All right, I need a motion and a second then to pay the bills.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Mr. Bartlett,
Aye.
Dr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin.
Aye,
Aye.
I just got a little altercation here.
Oh, yeah, little chair fight over there. Mr. Stelzer,
Aye.
Mr. York.
Aye.
All right, we'll pay the bills. All right, Tony, it looks like we've got, no, I didn't skip miscellaneous, did I? For some reason, I always skip miscellaneous.
Two reports.
Two reports.
First one from the Finance Committee regarding risk management insurance. The Finance Committee met on Tuesday, July 20th, 2021 at 4:45 PM to discuss renewing the village's risk management insurance. Present at the meeting were Finance Committee Chair Rob Bartlett, Finance Committee members Joe Stelzer and Kelly Rankin, Mayor Bill Brown, Councilmember Randy York, Fiscal Officer Tony Borgening, and Kerry Novacell from Highland. The Finance Committee reviewed the initial proposal for risk management coverage from Highland. If we don't change any of our coverage levels in the plan versus last year, the village's cost would go from $35,739 in 2020 to $35,383 in 2021. Last year, the Finance Committee benchmarked coverage levels with Fairfax, Terrace Park, Newtown, and Columbia Township, and made some changes such that we are now more in line with the other communities. The reason for the decline in cost is twofold. Number one, the rate increase on our base premiums this year was less than 1%. And two, our loss ratio points increased significantly from last year as some larger claims dropped off of our 5-year history, resulting in a larger discount being subtracted from our base premium. So the Finance Committee recommends going forward with the current coverage and quote of $35,383. Because this needs to be passed as legislation and it needs to be effective by August 26, 2020, 2021.
Yep, yep.
If council accepts this report, then the legislation will need to be passed as an emergency measure at the first council meeting in August. Respectively submitted and signed by Rob Bartlett, Chairman, Kelly Rankin, and Joe Stelzer.
Do you have the same report?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
All right, you've heard the report. I need a motion and a second to accept the report.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All right, any discussion regarding the report?
And I'm assuming this will be just a resolution, I'm assuming then?
Right. I'll just repeat something I said in the Finance Committee meeting. The fact that we're getting no increase right now on the insurance is a great deal, because there are massive
Remarkable.
increases coming through on commercial real estate throughout the industry right now. 30-40% increases is not unheard of. So the fact that, we're holding the line, and again, this is because it's a plan that's got a lot of municipalities in it, but the normal commercial insurance is going up drastically right now, so.
Something about what she mentioned, like, we have a really good loss ratio or something. I mean, we've had virtually minimal claims. or
We're
no
getting
claims. We're getting,
a better experience. It's called an experience ratio, and it's
Yeah.
basically your history of claims will determine your experience rate.
Right.
And we did have a bad ratio, and it's getting a little bit better. We're still not at the maximum range yet. If you remember, she was talking about the scale.
Right.
And I
Stuff
believe
has
she was talking
fallen
about
off.
But we're working our way there.
0 to 60, and we're like at 23 or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
60 being good, and we're at 23 right now.
Okay, all right.
And Ed, in the past, Carrie has worked with me to do that legislation. Do you want me to have her do it, and I'll send it to you, and you can look it over? Okay, okay.
All right, and roll call, Mr. Bartlett,
Aye.
Dr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin,
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer,
Aye.
Mr. York.
Aye.
Tuesday on that. Okay.
Got it.
You okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, next report.
Safety Committee.
Safety Committee regarding speed table on Miami Road. The Safety Committee met on July 12th, 2021 at 5:15 PM. Present at the meeting were Committee Chairman Avia Graves, Committee members Randy York and Kelly Rankin, Village Superintendent John Schippenberg, Village Engineer Chris Erdl, Chief Rick Hines, Mayor Bill Brown, and Village residents Jeff and Marianne Molsky, Tony Drake, and Jeff Bloomer. The meeting began at 5:20 PM to discuss the option to curb speed on Miami Road. The committee recommends that we place grooving in the pavement, a set of 3 places to be determined by Chris Erdl, working with Indian Hill, mayor, and residents. The grooving will leave space for bikes to pass safely. Additional signage should be added to alert drivers and bikers of the grooves. In addition, a bike path, standard biker and arrow, should be painted on the pavement to direct bikers to the proper place to ride their bicycle. In addition, the committee recommends that we purchase another speed radar sign to increase our ability to move them throughout the village where we have problem speeding. Respectively submitted and signed by Randy York
and Kelly.
and Kelly Rankin.
All right, you've heard the report. I need a motion and a second to accept the report.
So moved.
Second?
Second, any discussion?
I have a question.
Sure.
I mean, how do you determine what is the proper width of this grooving and what, what is the standard for allowing a bike to come down that hill? Because they, I mean, Joe, you could speak to this. Do people stick to the side when they come down that hill? Do they come down the middle?
Well, let me
Do you have
just.
any concerns?
Yeah, a lot of concerns. Number one, I've been riding a bike for probably 20 years all across the country. I've never seen anything like this. And so, I mean, to a non-cyclist, they might say, yeah, we can put some grooves in there. The reality is, where are you going to put those grooves? You're going to put them in the middle of the lane? You're going to put them on the curb? Because the problems are, sometimes cars don't respect the 3 feet rule that's supposed to be in Ohio, where cars are supposed to give cyclists 3 feet, before they, when they pass. So if that car is crowding the cyclists, they may move that cyclist out of those areas that you're designating for them to go through on a smooth piece of pavement. I don't know how this is going to work. And that hill is pretty dangerous, because speeds, you can easily get to 40 miles an hour without, pedaling.
Right.
And so I'm not sure how this is going to work. And I would say, show me where this has been done somewhere else on this type of grade of a hill. I just remember hitting some cattle grates out in Wyoming at about 20 miles an hour, and I thought I was going to die. I mean, the cattle grates are those steel poles they put in the ground to keep the cattle from walking across. And I hit those things, and I didn't know where I was going to be next. I mean, and so these speed grates sound like they're a great idea, but again, I've not seen these anywhere in 20 years of cycling. So yeah, I've got a little bit of problem with
It's too
what's
bad
being
Chris isn't
proposed.
here. He could, answer these questions.
Yeah, to your first part of your question, in terms of the spacing of the grooves themselves, there is essentially no standard on that, because you get a different, resonant, noise, depending on the spacing and the depth of the groove. It was my understanding in the discussion at the committee meeting, essentially, that these would be very shallow,
Yeah.
and they would be somewhat close together. And the
Not
idea-
like when you go off the highway.
Yeah, not like when you go off the highway. So
Yeah,
a
not like
bike
a rumble
tire
strip.
would not, fit down into a groove.
Is it going to be a series of grooves that are running perpendicular to the lane?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Come out to Ripley, and I'll show you where 68 jumps into 52. You can hear that noise at a house.
No, Joe, the noise issue, you're right.
Right.
That's-
I mean, it just
that's-
rattles.
Right.
As the cars are going through that. It makes,
Yeah.
and so again, I just ask if someone could show us where this has been implemented. I'm a big believer. If you can show me where something's been successful, I'll be all for it.
Does it slow the cars there?
It
Yes,
it alerts them.
It alerts
We
them.
talked about it, says this, it'll just get their attention.
Yeah, I don't know.
People will try to slow down a little bit, because they once they've been rattled once through the process, they may slow
They know
down.
it's there and they'll
Right.
kind of, yeah.
But you're talking about catching a bike tire. If you have, let's say, 6 or 7 of those spaces, the grooving put in, it'll rattle the wheel.
Be enough.
And so like the first one you hit, it rattles a little bit, you lose control of it, and suddenly you're up over the handlebars.
I think the idea, though, was that these would be placed a little bit more toward the top of the hill as an alert. So theoretically, a cyclist, wouldn't have picked up,
And
as much
I'm
speed.
not objecting to that part. I'm objecting to in the middle of that hill, because that's where people, they're not
No,
gonna.
it'll be at the top. I mean, we're looking at several options. I mean, first you have to understand, the speed on that hill has gone crazy.
Yeah,
It's-
yeah.
It is a problem.
I'm not, I'm
So-
not arguing that at all.
So Chris is looking into replacing remember the flashing lights that were up there? So he's working with Indian Hill has
And we
agreed
might
to
be
do
getting,
this.
yes, we might be getting that replaced.
So they're looking at getting a grant to do that. We're looking at some targeted police enforcement in the area to try to slow it down. And this was another option. I mean, this is something that we can do rather quickly. Now, I'm concerned about it, but it's my understanding in talking to Chris that this is not the kind of rumble strips that you're used to when you go off the road.
Right.
They're, I don't want to say mild, but I'm worried about the bikers too. I thought that I would have a conversation with you, says, you guys need to get the word out that this is there. Even
Well,
if we.
the report itself says a set of 3. So that
That's
tells
typically
me,
how it
Yeah,
is.
they would be,
That's
there'd
typically
be a
how-
set of 3, yes.
are you talking
things
just
that-
3 grooves
No,
or
no, no, no.
3 segments
No,
of
Three
it?
they're
sets
not,
of
would be
grooves.
like a dozen grooves
Okay,
per set.
so,
We probably should
Spaced
get a
out.
rendering from Chris, I
exactly.
think. is
And if
what a
they're
good
more
plan
towards the
is.
top of the hill, I'm probably not going to have as much of a problem with it as I am going to be in the middle of the hill. Because in the middle of the hill, you're trying to,
You're right.
you're trying to control a lot of things, including cars that don't respect, cyclists much on the roads. And so that's where you got to figure out, okay, where's that passageway going to be? The smooth area for bikes to be able to get through.
Well, as I understand it, the passageway would be between the curb and the start of the groove. And I think they're talking about allowing, like 24 inches or something like that. So the
But where you can
grooving
get
is going to
hit.
be more in the center of the road.
Like
again,
to have the
I
inside
think a
tire.
rendering would work, and I think,
Yeah,
again, show me
let's-
where this has been done somewhere else.
Table
because-
it for now, get more information.
Let me, yeah, let me talk to Chris about getting an actual rendering of it.
Or are there any communities where they've done this on a hill? I mean, how do other communities, I mean, Cincinnati has no dearth of hills. How do people mediate their bike speeds? I don't know the answer. I'm concerned about compounding the problem from a safety standpoint. I totally agree that something needs to be done.
I've seen that.
I just don't want to see somebody go over their handlebars and lose their spleen,
Yeah,
or their life.
Yeah.
I think Joe's right. I was driving down 126 the other night through Camp Dennison, and that 126 is crazy. It goes from 55 to 45 to 65 down to 35 again. But they've got their flashing sign right there as you enter into Camp Dennison. It's really a small, inobtrusive sign. It just says, hey, if you're going under 35, it's a yellow flash, and if it's over 35, it's a red flash. And I don't believe those things are very expensive.
Well, that's on it to get another one of those.
But I think you want to get a portable one, right?
Well, ours is the one that mounts to, an existing lamp post or.
Oh, okay. Oh,
And
okay.
it's mobile.
Yeah, it's mobile.
I
You
think
can
those
move
are
around.
very effective. I can tell you, at least they are for me when I see them, because sometimes you don't realize how fast you're going, and then when you see something like that, I think it causes you to slow down.
Or there's the people like, let's see how high I can get this.
I mean, there's a computer program that encourages that. but-
You don't want
Right?
to be doing that.
No, but again, I would just like to see where this has been done somewhere. I see grooves in the pavement usually in flat areas, not in the middle of a hill.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm.
Well, I mean, obviously, Joe, I mean, the thing of it was, been sort of, been debating this. This has been an ongoing issue, as everybody said.
Right.
And we're
And I don't
kind
know
of
the speed humps
come
work
up with
either.
something.
I mean, because the speed
Speed humps,
hump,
you're gonna get airborne.
yeah. I
No,
mean,
speed
now you're
hump.
getting
We
cars.
talked about the speed
going in
humps,
the
that
road.
is,
Yeah.
Right, so, it may be one of those situations where there's no great solution, other than maybe enforcing and putting some signs up and all the rest of the stuff, and try to cut down on it as much as possible.
Well, I think trust me,
Trying
there's
to
enough
throw a lot of
signage up on
different
that hill
things
right
in,
now,
yeah.
other than we could get another one of the lighted signs that, will blink at you, kind of a thing. But, yeah, you can't do speed humps or bumps, and the other one was humps,
or a table.
or a table,
Or a stop sign in the middle of the
or stop sign at Lytle Woods.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Really have sort of run the gamut of ideas here of how to.
It's
slow
a menu,
people down
we're just
on
looking
that hill,
at ways
yeah.
to,
Yeah.
So are we tabling this?
So,
it's not ideal, but
nothing is ideal. So do we want to table this sort of pending further?
Yeah,
let's
there's
take
Well,
somebody
I
show
think you
you
might-
rendering and
you-
show
you
you some
might be
other
able to break this
communities
down
done
if you
this,
take-
So they have a comfort level that it is going to be safe for all. I think that makes
If you take the
sense.
third paragraph about recommending purchase another speed radar sign, I'm okay with that. I think maybe we could pass that tonight.
Okay.
But the second paragraph, I think we table that one at this point until we get additional information. You want me to make a motion in that regard?
Make a motion to that.
I make a motion that we accept the third paragraph. The committee recommends that we purchase another speed radar sign to increase our ability to move them through the village where we have problem speeding. And we will table the second paragraph regarding putting grooving into the hill at this point until further information. That's the motion.
Okay.
That's a
Do I have-
motion.
That's a
Second.
motion.
I'll
Do I have a
second. I'll second.
All right, Mr. Bartlett.
Aye.
Mrs. I was going to say Mrs. Graves, not here. Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin.
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer.
Aye.
Mr. York.
aye.
All right, we'll do it that way.
I'll reach out to Chris and see if we can get
He probably knows
rendering
better
even
than
better,
anyone.
if we could get like a video someplace that actually implemented it.
One quick question. Are we allowed to cite cyclists coming down the hill?
Well, I think we are, because aren't they are subject to all rules and regulation of the road, are they not?
I tell you, if we do that a couple times, it'll slow the speeds down on the cyclists.
Joe, I mean, living over there, trust me, I have seen guys on bikes doing
Amazing.
40 or plus
Oh.
down that hill.
Easily.
Yeah, easily.
40, 45 miles an hour on that type of
Okay,
hill.
yeah.
But again, at one point, the Indian Hill Rangers start citing bike groups for not stopping completely at stop signs. The word got around pretty quick, and then every group was
stop at
stopping at the
stop
stop sign and putting the foot down at the, so, I mean, it doesn't take long.
Right,
And, and again, I hate to see my fellow cyclists getting a ticket, but if they're not following the law,
right.
I think it only takes a few to kind of get that
Boy,
message out.
One
Well,
car coming out of East Street either way,
Well,
and
it's
it's,
60/40, I mean, if you're gonna, enjoy the privileges of the road, you gotta obey the laws of the road,
Yeah.
But, I mean, are the cyclists really the concern speeding down that hill? I mean, I'd say it's more the cars, but
And
anything to
myself
mitigate.
personally, I don't go fast on that thing because it's not in the greatest shape. The road isn't. And there's a lot of imperfections in it that I don't like hitting, bumpy surfaces. So I think we may be doing the cyclists a favor by making them slow down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
All right.
going down in a car, though, you gotta ride your brakes the whole way down.
Yeah, you do,
Stay in
you
25.
do, because it's a steep hill, it's a steep hill. All right, under miscellaneous, village offices will be closed in observance of Labor Day, Monday, September the 6th, 2021. That's all we have. All right, I think we have one resolution here, Tony.
Yes, one resolution, adopting the budget for 2022 and to declare emergency.
All right, you've heard the first reading. I need a motion and a second to suspend the rules and allow for a second and third reading.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Mr. Bartlett.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin.
Aye?
Mr. Selzer.
Aye.
Mr. York.
Aye.
May we have the second reading, please?
Adopting the budget for 2022 and to declare emergency.
All right, is there any discussion regarding that?
We talked about it earlier.
Yeah,
Well,
that's what we did at 5:30.
Okay.
Joe?
Yeah, I'll just go through a couple things here that, basically, I think this budget confirms some of the things I said earlier in the year about where our budget was heading and all the rest of the stuff, and that some of the monies we got in from the state and federal government under, the different COVID things that were out there helped us create a little bit of a window where we do have enough cash to run the village. But as we look out longer in the long-range forecast, obviously, that's not the case, and we're bleeding our cash reserves down again. And this is something, and I was going to try to do a PowerPoint presentation, but I'll do this kind of in summary. Basically, this process probably started about 11 years ago. This is not something that just happened recently.
Right.
And there was a lot of reasons for why it occurred, and I think we've talked about them in the past. Some of it is that the spending growth has exceeded the revenue growth. And that's, and just by nature of the way the taxes work, that the taxes don't keep up with inflation. You need to pass new ones to try to get there. But one of the bigger problems were the elimination of the estate tax and personal property taxes back in 2013. And we used to get about $300,000 annually before that was eliminated. And that helped, make our budgets a little bit. There was always this conversation in the village about how we had $1 million general fund balance and we were healthy. We've now learned that that was just, kind of a unreasonably low goal. We know that other communities keep a cash reserve balance much higher than that. And again, this $1 million objective balance didn't include additional debt that was brought on to do the building addition and actually buy the most recent ambulance for the fire department. There was a 2018 tax levy that was proposed 3 years after the elimination of the personal property tax and estate taxes. So for 3 years, we were doing it without that revenue before we finally actually tried to replace it. What happened is that as soon as we passed that levy, the expenses pretty much exceeded the additional taxes that were generated from the levy. So it really didn't put us in a better place in that process. That negative trend of lowering cash reserves has continued to occur. At the Finance Committee meeting, I had a listing of different areas that I call chronic underspending areas for the village. And this is everything from the roads to trees to building up our cash reserves to fire department facilities that we really don't provide proper facilities for our fire department here in the building, tennis courts, sewers. There's just a long list of stuff that we really haven't spent money on, even in the last 11 years when we were burning through our cash reserves. And one instance of this is the roads. Our village clerk does a report that assesses the quality of the roads and rates them fair, poor, good, and okay. If we took just the roads that are rated poor and fair and took the cost to replace those roads at that point, it's $3 million that we're behind on our spending. And we have not been spending enough on roads in the last 11 years, so we need to start increasing that as we go forward. The pool, we've talked a little bit about the pool recently, and at some point, probably in the near future, we're probably looking at a replacement of the main pool, the lap pool, and the wading pool. Those numbers are probably anywhere between $1.5 million and $2 million. We keep trying to fix the leaks. We haven't fixed all the leaks yet, but we're well past the estimated useful life for those pool facilities. We're just kidding ourselves that, you know, we're not going to suddenly wake up and find out that, you know, some of those structures have failed. Tree spending. We've been spending a fair amount on trees in the last 10 years, but most of it's been going to removing trees. Very little has been going to putting new trees in. So we've been losing tree canopy for years, and we need to step back up about, you know, putting new trees in, or suddenly we're going to look like a new, this is one of the things for the, you know, Centennial Committee, is, you know, do we want Mariemont to maintain its tree canopy? Well, we're going to have to spend to get there. And we probably should have spent 5 years ago to give the trees a chance to grow. We need to start stepping that up. And I've just kind of estimated we're probably $1 million behind on that. The sewers are one that's incredibly difficult to figure out exactly where we're at. But if you think about it, most of the sewers went in when Mariemont was first built 100 years ago. Chris has told me that we're probably beyond the useful life of those sewers. You know, they were not made to last much more than 100 years. We really don't have a good inventory about what we're facing. And Bill and I have talked a little bit about maybe it's time to get an external engineering firm in here that can start doing some sampling on our sewers and tell us what we're dealing with here. You know, we had a group of storm sewers, and this is storm sewers, not sanitary sewers, because storm sewers are our responsibility. We had an estimate come in for storm sewers over on Albert Place, and it was $400,000. And I've been told that that number may be a little bit high. But if you look, Albert Place is probably 0.2% of the street inventory for all of Mariemont. And if we extrapolate that money out, it's $80 million. So let's just say it's $10 million that we need to spend on roads right now. So even though we're facing some numbers here that aren't very pretty as we get in the out years, there's more stuff that we even have to try to address. So at some point, and I said this a while back, that we need to be very transparent with the citizens of Mariemont about what we're facing here. And I don't think we've done a very good job of that, even in the last 18 months. I don't think we've given the residents anything on financial information. Mm-hmm. So we need to somehow figure out how to get them up to speed about what we're facing. We need to figure out, we're definitely going to need additional revenue from somewhere. I don't know if we can get there just by cutting costs. I don't think we can. But we're going to need to do additional revenue. But part of my question was 6 months ago, hey, how do our taxes compare to other communities? And what do we need to do to, you know, make sure that we're staying competitive with other communities? And how much room is there to raise the taxes? I don't know the answer to that. I'd like to see that information put together so we can take a look at it. Because again, we do hear complaints from Mariemont residents that our tax burden is pretty great. Some of that is the schools. The schools are probably, you know, anywhere between 70-75% of your real estate tax bill. The village is like 9%. Mm-hmm. So it's not like the village has been taking it.
Right.
The schools have been taking it.
Yep.
But I think there's a carryover effect that people are like saying, I don't care, my total bill is this. I don't want it to go higher. Mm-hmm. So we have to somehow figure out how to explain to them, we're not taking that much from you, but we've got these needs that we need to address. So again, in the next 60 days, and I think I mentioned this a while back to Bill and Tony, can we put something together to do that analysis of the current tax burden and compare it to neighboring communities? What are we paying? What are the other communities paying? Because as we look at a Columbia Township, they don't have income taxes. We do. Terrace Park doesn't have income taxes. We do. Terrace Park's real estate taxes, I think, are a little bit higher than ours. But let's put that information together so we can share it with residents and explain to them what we're facing here. I think it's critical at this point because, again, we got a little bit of breathing room from the state and federal money, but we're back to where we were. We're on a decrease in cash reserves. And even that cash reserves number, I didn't talk about that. We probably need $2 to $3 million, at least in cash reserves, to be comparable to other communities. So there's some large numbers out there we need to deal with. But I will say this, I'm always an optimist because I think if we put the right plan together, we can find the money.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've got a industrial district that is underutilized right now. I think a little bit of economic development. We might be able to get the right businesses in there that generate earnings taxes. We may be facing a little bit of a challenge with Kellogg's. We don't know yet one way or the other. But there's some opportunities there, and we have to try to figure out how to work these things. And I got the quote here from Benjamin Franklin, failing to plan is a plan for failure. That's kind of where we're at. We really don't have a plan. We're just kind of middling along, but we know the numbers are going in the wrong direction. How do we change that course?
Well, for sure, there's no easy solution to that, or we wouldn't be in this fix. But you're right about one thing. I mean, not having a plan obviously is not the right first step. We do need a plan. We do need an assessment, a better assessment of our situation.
So, but in the next 60 days, can you take a look at that tax burden comparison? I mean, that's something we can do in 60 days. And then the next 60 days, try to figure out how to communicate with the residents. I mean, I think those are two easy steps to kind of get us moving in that process. We're not going to solve everything, but at least let's get that out there so people know what we're facing.
Well, the Hamilton County Auditor's website has all that information, right? We just need to put it in a format to compare it.
Don't have the information on the real estate taxes, we have to compare the information on the earnings. Yeah.
Oh, earnings tax,
But
okay.
Deanna has a document, she sent that
Okay.
out before, she has a document that shows how we compare to everybody.
For the income taxes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because again, I
You
think
get
the
the real
residents are
estate tax,
thinking that
otherwise auditors
a
have-
tax increase, why do you guys need this? Because my
It's just a
taxes
matter of
keep
putting it
going up.
together.
And I
The
think we have to
information's
educate them
there.
about why.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
get my guy to
we
do it
do.
if you want to pay for it.
So,
I don't
Joe,
think you want to pay for it, do you?
What metric do you suggest? I mean, if $1 million in the fund is, and I agree that's sort of arbitrary, is it, 6 months operating expenses? Is it a year's operating expenses?
Typically-
What is the metric by which,
Typically 7 to 9 months is what they
Okay.
try to hold. And so,
It's like a
and-
household, you want to have.
yeah, I mean, you want to have emergency cash.
Right.
And again, when we were sitting here in April of last year, I was worried about how we were going to make payroll in November. From the standpoint, if we were going to see earnings taxes dropping, and we were getting emails from the county auditor about expecting decreases in real estate taxes, because they only give them to us if they collect them from people. And if
Right.
people weren't working, and I was looking at the projections saying, how are we going to make payroll in November? And so without that cushion, you run into those types of questions. We could have borrowed, we could have probably figured out to do something. But that's why I think that 7 to 9 months is what I've heard is the kind of the standard people try to get to. And so in our case, that's about a $3 million number.
I agree. But COVID is an outlier too. I mean,
Yeah.
it threw everything, and, I mean, would we have been facing this? Yes. But would we have been facing it to that extreme? I don't know.
Well, 12 years ago, we had a financial crisis where we were looking at the same types of metrics. We had people getting laid off, and so that's why you try to have that cash reserve out there when you run through those speed humps, that you've got enough money to run the community. On top of that, if we talk about sewers, okay, the age of the sewers, if we have a sewer collapse, where's that money going to come from? So that's why you have cash reserves to deal with that type of stuff. So I don't necessarily think the 7 to 9 months is a bad metric based upon, talking with other communities and seeing what they do. I will tell you, though, a lot of the bigger cities don't follow that metric sometimes. But, like in the case of the city of Cincinnati, they always seem to spend every dollar they get in. But they always like to brag about the $1 billion value they have on that rail line between Cincinnati and Chattanooga that they think they can unlock at any point in the future. So,
Is that true?
yeah, they own a rail line between.
No, I know they do, but I mean, can they unlock the value? I mean, is that a viable thing?
I just heard Mayor Cranley say a couple weeks ago, if you take the value that he paid for the Lawson Way rail line and extrapolate it to that one, it's $1 billion. So,
okay.
but they're we don't have a rail line in our asset portfolio
No.
that we can pull back on. So we have to be, you have to
No, but
understand.
we do have opportunity. Like you said, we have an industrial area, industrial district that is underutilized, but that is something that's not going to be solved, quickly. That's a longer-term approach at looking at something like that.
But again, we've got a little bit of breathing room.
Yeah,
It's
we
not
have-
like we're
yes.
not worried about making payroll tomorrow.
Right.
But
right.
it's what we do right now is, what sets us up for that, potential problem we got in 2024 and 2025.
Yeah. All right,
So you had your third reading, so,
Wait,
yeah.
no,
Yes, we did.
All right, so we went
It's only the
through-
first reading.
Third.
We already had third reading.
You have 2 more readings.
No, we've already
We
had,
had two.
We had the,
we had the
We've had
third.
two.
we had the third?
We had the
Second.
third.
We did? I thought we just,
I thought we were having discussion at the end of the second reading.
We had,
Kind of divergent that was.
just read it again, but I have it marked that we had the third reading.
We'll just read it one more time and then vote on it.
all right, third reading, adopting the budget for 2022 and to declare emergency.
All right, you need a motion and a second to adopt the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin?
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer?
Aye.
Mr. York?
Aye.
All right, I need a motion and a second to evoke the emergency clause.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin?
Aye.
Mr. Stelzer?
Aye.
Mr. York?
Aye.
You'll get used to it, Bill.
All right, the resolution is adopted.
No, one more reading.
One more reading. All right, folks,
So you and Tony are gonna do the two things that Joe was just talking about? The,
Yeah, so you're going to look at Terrace Park, Fairfax, Newtown, Columbia Township, right?
yep.
Glendale.
And then also the communication for
Glendale.
the fiscals, yeah.
What about, let's throw Glendale in there?
Yeah, it just needs to be consumable by people, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we can
Don't
get it in
get-
town crier or something like that, or
yeah,
there's
we'll,
ways.
I
Right.
mean,
you're
it's
overcomplicating
definitely
people
something
aren't
that we
gonna
have to
read it.
start to look at. I mean, clearly,
I think the concept is communicate early and often.
yeah.
Right, and again, I'm a big believer, you know, we had the council minutes, and there was a reason why we did those, the way we did them
Right.
years ago.
Verbatim.
They're online now, so we don't need to do that.
Right.
So, you know, is it pie charts, is it graphs, is it headlines, is it, you know, can we project what we're going to talk about? You know, because by the time it gets in there, it's done, or we're voting on it, so we can't get input. So is there a way that we can get better about projecting what's gonna happen when and getting folks involved? I think we talked about this, there's resources out there, there's folks that will step forward.
Oh, yeah, yeah, for sure, yeah. Does anybody have anything positive to say? I'd like to end this on a cheery note,
Well,
although
we
that's
had,
a start right there.
was it HUD, that Joy that came?
Oh, yeah, Joy came and gave
And
us a
then there was
presentation,
she
yes.
referenced this Claire that worked for her department that just would love to come to Mariemont and.
Right.
And look at options for, you know, historical preservations and so forth. I'm gonna reach out to her and I'll let you guys know.
That's we're already working at right now with Joy, so the finance committee. So I'm waiting for to tell me your availability to.
To see Joy or Claire or?
No, he's
The
talking
Joy,
about
the
Claire.
Joy.
He's
Joy,
talking about
but
Claire.
this
But
is on top of that, you're
This
saying,
is-
Randy,
yeah,
right?
this-
This-
I mean, you can join in
This
this
is
conversation.
Claire.
Yeah, because you can join in, but I've already been reaching out, because there's 3 names on that email. It's Joy, Claire, and I think there's a third woman as well who's gonna be participating with that. So I'm happy to have you come to the committee, but
join
we've already started the conversation. I'm just waiting.
I just remember she was so
Yep.
this girl was so enthusiastic, and I'm like,
Yep.
"Oh, another resource."
So we're gonna try and set that
Great,
up for
awesome.
August, so I'm just waiting for you to tell me your availability, and we can go ahead and
I'll
set
look
the
at it
meeting up.
tonight.
All right,
All right?
Positive note,
we're adjourned. That was a positive note.
positive note.
I tried,
Best we get.
I tried.
You won't be able, get better at that.